Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as once again as we head into this weekend we could be seeing some quite disruptive weather returning in the way of big and perhaps pretty extreme thunderstorms. We're going to start to see some hot and humid air return to southern areas. Unlike last week, where it gave great, beautiful sunshine with lots of warm, hot early September weather with temperatures widely at heatwave levels, instead it's just going to introduce a lot of instability, as instead of high pressure dominating, high pressure will nudge in with that hot and humid air, for low pressure will sweep back in. So we could see a temporary 27 or 28 degrees in the southeast on Saturday, but come Sunday and Monday we could be seeing some extremely severe thunderstorms in places, especially for southern areas. Can't really pinpoint exactly where we'll see them at this stage, but as we'll see on the UKV in a minute, it is looking very lively. The Cape levels are looking ridiculously high, as high if not higher than when than what they were last weekend when we saw thunderstorms at the back end of the heat wave we saw last week. So those sort of conditions could be returning, and it could even be more widespread this upcoming weekend. The long term beyond that, as we look at the GFS, GM, ECMWF and the ensembles, isn't looking great. It doesn't look like there'll be much thunderstorms or hot and humid air. It looks like it's going to be really unsettled, with a lot of low pressure coming off the Atlantic, and could be pretty stormy with the jet stream powering up. More typical autumnal conditions, big contrast to what we've had through the first half of September so far, where it's been more summer-like. It's going to be really quite autumnal. Temperatures will probably be average, maybe even below average, and we'll see plenty of rainfall and strong winds, and even a risk of seeing some named storms as well. But again, way too far away to pinpoint that with much accuracy. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see there is a bit of precipitation in the west at the moment, and this is the remnants of the weather front that's pushing in. Now, this is initially a cold front as it moves in, and as it slowly spreads south and eastwards. But what we'll see over the next few hours, next 12-24 hours, is this weather front stall across northern England and Wales, and it could pep up where we do start to see more significant rainfall in places. However, it transitions from a cold front to a warm front. Again, nothing actually happens in reality apart from it changes direction in where it's moving. A cold front would be bringing cold air in the direction of its travel. However, it's going to become a warm front because it switches direction and actually heads back out towards the North Atlantic very slowly, and that's because that warm, humid air across the near continent will be wafting up, pushing that weather front back the way it came. But while that transition happens, it could stall for a period of time, and we could see quite a lot of heavy rain in these areas across northern England and Wales. To the north of it, it'll be cool, fresh, but probably dry with a few showers. To the south and the east, it'll be hot and humid at times. As I said, Saturday could get up to 27 degrees. Eventually, with that hot and humid air dominating for much of England and Wales, we'll eventually see low pressure move up from the Bay of Biscay, with Atlantic systems coming in as well to give a big mishmash, perhaps even a sort of a perfect storm pattern for thunderstorms developing through Sunday and Monday, where it could be extremely severe indeed. But at the time being, it's nothing too bad. If we do look at the temperatures, you'll be able to see where that weather front is positioned. You can still see towards the London area, still seeing 22, 23 degrees, and still a little bit warmer across northern England, where the weather hasn't fully moved through. But you can see for Western Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of the Republic of Ireland, it is a good few degrees cooler than it is further south and eastwards, with temperatures more towards average, if not slightly below average, for the time of year. But if we do look at the UKV, we'll be able to see all the severe weather that could be coming our way over the coming days. Now, you can see the weather fronts decayed a little bit through this afternoon, but it could pep up over the course of this evening, transitioning slightly further northwards, and you can just see a conveyor belt of rain for much from the Republic of Ireland into northern England, maybe North Wales. Again, uncertainty exactly the northern and southern extent of it, but where it does set up, it will be miserable, perhaps for 24 to 36 hours. As we progress into Friday and Saturday, we see that weather front break down a bit, but you have noticed that it is moved further northwards. It's back towards Scotland now, whereas right now it's across northern England, North Wales. So it's slowly transitioning northwards, and this is where the hot and humid air starts to build in. Now, there could be a few heavy thundery showers through early hours of Saturday, but nothing crazy as of yet. By Saturday afternoon, things are actually pretty stable. If you look at the mean sea level pressure, you can see a brief bump of high pressure has built in over the top of this hotter air. But low pressures to the south, and this is the Bay of Biscay low, starting to move in. You can see some thunderstorms perhaps through Saturday evening, clipping the far southwest, but the real activity comes in Sunday. Start to see lines of heavy rain and thundery activity moving in through Sunday morning, and as we head into Sunday afternoon, we see that low properly move in. Now, these are the occluded fronts associated with the low, so more likely to be heavy bouts of precipitation with embedded thunderstorms possible within it. As we head through Sunday evening, you can see that weather front gets larger as it wraps all of that moisture in with it, more intense, and then as we head into Sunday evening and Monday, we could see an extremely big light show for southern areas as we start to see some big thunderstorms develop initially across northern France, slowly progress through the Channel, and could smash many areas in the south and the east. Now, yesterday's video, we saw another big line of thunderstorms in a similar sort of pattern, slightly further westwards and northwards. So the positioning is quite uncertain, but all models, especially some of these shorter range high resolution models like the UKV, have got the risk of some big thunderstorms. Again, we'll probably on Saturday have a very detailed look at it, as we'll have all the short range runs with it in its time frame. But for the time being, the risk is there and is looking pretty substantial indeed. Those thunderstorms eventually clearing out into the North Sea for the early hours of Monday, and then it could give just remnants of big thunderstorms remaining in places, perhaps Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, anywhere behind this weather front, still in the warm, humid air through Monday, and could see more of those big thunderstorms for eventually that low pressure wraps away out into the Atlantic and brings fresher air in from the west. And you can see it's a showery outlook, but it's not as severe and as thundery. And you can see the upper air temperatures, all that warmth wrapped around in that low, and eventually by Monday you can see it getting swept away by fresher Atlantic air. And another way to view this is by having a look at the mixed level cape. Nothing too severe on Saturday, but just what happens overnight into Sunday. Significant cape just to the south of the chart through early hours of Sunday. It pushes northwards, and look at all those pinks and purples developing in the south, significant energy, and eventually it does dissipate through Monday afternoon as eventually gets pushed away. So it's a plume of about 24 to 36 hours of very hot and unstable air, going to make it feel very humid, and of course bringing that risk of those quite extreme thunderstorms in places. Luckily, as I said, only lasting 24 hours or so with that thunderstorm risk, but we could see some warm weather, especially before those thunderstorms move in, maybe Friday, Saturday. So tomorrow could be low 20s, Saturday could be mid to high 20s. Now, if you look at the max temperatures, you can see this afternoon peaking around the 22 or 23 degree mark, much cooler further northwards behind the cold front. Into Friday, we could see more widespread low 20s, could even peak at 24 or 25 in a couple spots. Again, not crazy, but definitely pretty warm for mid-September. Into Saturday, temperatures even higher. Could see a 26 or 27 across southern areas, but of course that's as that hot and humid air properly engulfs the south. And then into Sunday, very mixed conditions. Could still be warm in places where we avoid the thunderstorms, where we see them. It'll be very humid, but very rainy, of course. And yeah, could be a lot of rainfall in places. And then finally into Monday, that warmth is swept away, maybe a 22 in the far east, but look further westwards, 13 or 14 degrees for much of Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland and Scotland as fresher Atlantic air moves back in. Now, if you look at the long range, as I said, it's not looking particularly encouraging. If you do want drier, warmer weather or any remnants of summer, it's looking likely to be really quite unsettled and horrible. Now you can see that low down toward the Iberian coast, out towards the Bay of Biscay, moving northwards and combining with an Atlantic low through Sunday and Monday. And as I said, that causes those thunderstorms. But when that fresh Atlantic air moves in, as we saw in the last few frames of the UKV, we go into quite a westerly flow. Look at that, quite a deep area of low pressure position to our north, blustery westerly winds, and it's an extratropical system there out towards the North Atlantic, getting picked up and coming our way. Again, it might not give anything too severe, it doesn't do anything too severe here, but it will put in a lot of energy to the jet stream and keep these low pressures fueled and powered up, continuing a very unsettled barrage of low pressure. And you can see here all the way towards the end of September, an extratropical system actually does fire our way. Again, there's a pretty deep area of low pressure around the 970 millibars, giving quite stormy, windy and rainy conditions all the way to the end of the run. And you can see the upper air temperatures are below average. It's pretty cool and pretty Atlantic dominated, and you can see that by looking at the accumulated precipitation. I showed you this yesterday, and once again we got loads of pinks and purples appearing across much of the North Atlantic and Northwest Europe, implying a very strong jet stream, flat jet stream with it, and giving us a lot of rainfall. If you look at the GM, it's pretty similar. Again, that low coming up from the Bay of Biscay over the next few days, giving the thunderstorms, and eventually the westerly flow breaks through, and then it stays very unsettled through the rest of the week, and all the way towards day 10, very similar to the GFS, actually pushes in quite a substantial deep area of low pressure, which here, again, could give a bit of a named storm risk, and yeah, some really horrible conditions. Again, you look at the 10-metre winds, that very strong wind gusts and sustained winds there for the United Kingdom. Really quite horrible. Again, these are sustained winds getting up to sort of 40 or 50 knots, so 30, 40 miles per hour. Really not great at all. If we look at the ECMWF, does that fare any differently? Again, the low coming up from the Bay of Biscay through the weekend, giving thunderstorms, and then eventually we go into a westerly flow, and it's nearly the same as the other runs. At day 10, it doesn't have that bigger low that the other two runs have, but it generally is still very westerly dominated and very unsettled all the way to day 10. So yeah, next few days, through the weekend, start of next week, could be some severe weather coming, could be some warmth, but also some severe weather with lots of heavy rain, and especially some thunderstorms in the south. But into the longer term, it's looking still pretty disruptive and pretty horrible. Different sort of disruptive and horrible, more in terms of windy, rainy weather. But regardless, it's not looking great. And of course, with all that wind and rain, as we'll see from the ensembles in a minute, the upper air temperatures aren't too terrible, as we are seeing, quite substantial warm sectors from the Atlantic. But with the rain and cloud, even a warm sector, it's not going to feel too warm at all. Now, if we do look, as I said, at those ensembles, you can see well above average through this weekend, and that's going to fuel the thunderstorms. You can see the thunderstorm breakdown there, quite substantial precipitation spikes, but still a lot of uncertainty, exact positioning and severity of those thunderstorms. But we see a big drop off through Monday and Tuesday, and then generally for the longer term, all the way to the end of September, we're around average, hovering slightly above and slightly below. Precipitation is still fairly high, indicating an unsettled pattern. And you can see that further with the sea level pressure, generally lower pressure, especially over the next week to 10 days, again indicating pretty unsettled and horrible conditions. The 2 metre temperatures are looking fairly poor in the longer term. The next sort of 4 or 5 days, widely towards the London areas, the low to mid 20s. But come next week and beyond, we're looking at high teens at best. And finally, if we compare to the ECMWF to get cross-model consensus, again above average over the next few days. Big precipitation spikes through Sunday and Monday, so thunderstorms roll in, and we see a drop-off and generally hovering around above or below average in the longer term, with plenty of precipitation once again. The sea level pressure is fairly low, perhaps slight signs of it rising in the longer term, but nothing substantial in the next 7 to 10 days. And then finally, 2 metre temperatures are poor as well, widely mid to high teens. So yes, disruptive weather coming over the next few days. Make sure you stay tuned. Nothing coming in the next sort of 48 to 72 hours, apart from perhaps some quite persistent rain through northern England. But it doesn't look too severe. We've got no warnings in force. Sometimes this sort of pattern with the stationary weather front, we can see warnings, but we are still early in the autumn and the ground isn't too saturated yet, so it shouldn't cause too many issues. It just might be quite horrible where it does occur. And then, of course, we've got the thunderstorms into the weekend, Sunday and Monday. It's going to be pretty horrible when they do roll in. Hopefully, many people can enjoy some maybe warmer weather on Saturday where things don't look too bad. So if you have got plans for the weekend, Saturday's probably your best bet for getting outdoors for Sunday and Monday. Could be a washout dependent on where you are. And then, of course, the longer range, not looking great either. But, of course, we'll concentrate that nearer the time, as it is looking quite uncertain. But in exact severity and positioning of any lows. But we're pretty sure, yeah, it's going to be low pressure dominated and pretty stormy. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you again for another video soon.